What's up guys? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Emma if you're new here, and I love to talk about all things Peloton, cycling, and fitness, so be sure to subscribe. I post every single Sunday. Today I'm going to be doing a video that one of you guys requested. You asked me to take a couple of rides that terrified me, and honestly, there are rides that scare me on this platform. So I was like, this is perfect. It'll get me out of my comfort zone. Definitely will do some hard rides, take some instructors I haven't taken in a while, and hopefully it will be a good time and not super terrifying, but I think that these rides are going to be pretty hard. So we'll see how I feel at the end of this. When I saw this comment, the first ride that came to mind is Tabata rides in general. Tabata is 2-to-1 work to rest ratio, so it's harder than HIIT, like you get less rest. And I think that, in my opinion, is the hardest kind of ride on the platform. So just Tabata rides in general, but then specifically a 45-minute Tabata ride by Robin Arzón. And this is from January 21st, 2020. I like the music. It's all pop music. I like Robin. She's very intense though. And Tabata is just terrifying in general to me. A 45-minute Tabata ride sounds very terrifying. So let's just get right on into the ride and we'll see how hard this is. But I am a little scared. I haven't taken a ride with Robin in so long just because I usually take new rides, and obviously she's not coming out with new rides right now. But wow, she is intense. That was a super hard ride. She really focused on perceived exertion, so the majority of the ride were like these 2-minute pushes where you did 30 seconds super hard, 90 seconds like pretty hard, and then 1-minute recovery for the Tabata part. So she gave suggestions at the beginning and it was like 55 to 65 resistance and like 100 cadence. And that's just not achievable for me at all. So I kind of did my own thing. She was also like, yeah, just like do whatever is hard for you, but that's really hard. And then also this class was old, so there were people in the class and she called someone out for like not going hard in the pushes. Like she was like, oh, you in the back row, like you seem like you're fine right now, you should be going harder. And I'm like, oh my gosh, if that was me, I would literally die. And this class is like so hard. I just always wonder if beginners just accidentally take these classes because they don't know like what Tabata means, or that like Robin's very hard, so they just like take these classes and then it's just like crazy. I feel like there should be some better difficulty rating on Peloton because yeah, this was a very difficult class and it's not like it was rated that high in difficulty, but definitely hard. It did scare me while I was doing it, but it felt really good at the end. I haven't done such an intense ride in kind of a long time at this point. I feel like I've really fallen in to doing the same instructors again, and it's like I always know what to expect. I feel like my favorite, obviously, Ben Aldis. He is hard, but he's never usually like push yourself to your absolute limits the way that Robin is. So I thought it was a good ride. It was a scary ride. I'm glad to have done the 45-minute Tabata rides. Will I do more 45-minute Tabata rides with Robin in the future? Maybe. We'll see. If I want a hard ride, it is a good ride. But that is it for today. I'm definitely going to take breaks between the classes. Like tomorrow, I'm not going to do another ride that terrifies me because otherwise it's just going to kill my legs. Like this was such a hard workout. So I will see you when I'm all rested up and ready to do another terrifying ride. It is now 2 days later. I took a day off yesterday and did some non-terrifying rides. But now I am back at it. And I think that this ride is the ride that I am most terrified about on the entire platform. And that is the 45-minute Metallica ride by Kendall Toole. It has a difficulty rating of 9.4 out of 10, which is quite high. And basically any ride by Kendall is already terrifying by nature just because it's by Kendall. So you know it's going to be really hard. But then Metallica is like rock music, and that's also terrifying that we're going to be pedaling to that. I've actually had this ride recommended to me before, so I've like always wanted to take it, but I've just never done it because I'm scared. So let's just get right on into this ride and see how it goes. That ride was bad, but it wasn't that bad. It was a lot of sprints, which aren't my favorite, but I feel like I actually am getting better at sprints. Like I've done so many classes that are just sprint focused that I still can't go the speed that she wants me to go, but I'm like getting closer. But basically she split up the ride. So she'd be like, oh, if you're like a metal rider, like you have to go way harder. So I mostly did the non-metal rider stats, which I found more reasonable. And then the only time where I was missing the intervals is she would give us a range and then she would be like add 3 to 5 like a bunch of times over that range. And I can just never do that, but I just kind of let it go now. I feel like before I used to get super frustrated when that would happen, but now I'm just like, whatever, yeah, like I can't do that. I'm just gonna keep doing my best at my current cadence and resistance. The music was fine. I don't really know it that well, but honestly, I thought that I was going to dislike this ride, or just it was going to be hard and I wasn't going to like the music, but the vibes were kind of good. It was not horrible. I definitely recommend it if you like Kendall Toole, if you like Metallica, or if you just want to check out a rock ride. I think that this one is fair. I also wonder if it's a little bit easier because it is an artist series ride, so she's trying to appeal to a larger audience. I would be curious who Kendall's base is, just because she's so hard. I wouldn't take her regularly just because I usually can't hit her call outs, and then I find that demotivating. So I don't know, let me know if you take a lot of Kendall and if you can hit her call outs, or if you just kind of do whatever you want. Like, I like her personality. She seems very nice and she makes the rides go by like fairly quickly talking, but she's just so hard. But overall, I'm just really happy that this ride did not kill me while I was doing it. I really thought that it was going to be so hard, but it was somewhat reasonable for Kendall. So 10 out of 10. It is now a couple of days later. I took a little break from just riding the Peloton in general. So now I am back in business and we're just going to continue with some terrifying rides, a good way to plunge back into it. So I feel like this is more of a category and I just picked one specific ride from it, but it's basically HIIT and Hills rides by Emma Lovewell, Olivia Amato, and Kendall Toole. All of those individually terrify me. The one that I chose is a 45-minute HIIT and Hills ride by Olivia Amato from November 9th, 2020. And it has a 9.2 difficulty rating, which is pretty hard, and it is EDM music, which I'm excited about. She does a lot of out of the saddle work that makes it very difficult, and then she also just pushes you very hard. Like, I feel like I typically do HIIT and hill rides with like Cody Rigsby, Ben Aldis, Alex Toussaint, and I think that they push you like a little less hard. I've done HIIT and hill rides with Emma and Olivia before, I think, and I remember them being terrifying. So we're just gonna relive it again and really push myself by taking this hard ride. I would never choose to take this ride on my own, so I'm glad that I have a video that kind of forces me out of my comfort zone. So let's just get right on into this super hard ride. I really hated that ride. I feel like usually I can appreciate if a ride is hard and I can't hit everything, and I'm just like, okay, whatever, this is something to strive to. But I felt like the reason this ride was bad is because it was so disorganized. And I think that's in general what I don't like about Kendall Toole, Emma Lovewell, and Olivia Amato. I'm kind of all grouping them together. I realized it the most on Olivia's ride is basically she'll have a set, but then she'll drastically change the set in the middle. So it's really popular for instructors to say like, oh, we're gonna do, you know, 4 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off HIIT segment, and kind of lay out like, oh, we're going for speed or we're going for resistance during the HIIT parts. And then from there, you can kind of figure out like what your resistance and cadence should be. And then a lot of instructors for the last interval or two will be like, oh, like try to go 5 cadence faster or try to add resistance. But Olivia starts out with the HIIT section. I pick like a reasonable amount for me that the intervals are pretty hard. Like I want it to be a hard workout. And then after like 2 intervals, she'll be like, oh, add 5 to 15 resistance, which it's like, okay, maybe I can add 5. But then after that interval, she's like, all right, we're going to go 10 to 15 cadence faster. And it's like, okay, if I knew that you're going to do all of these add-ons, I would have picked a way easier interval to start. But the problem with that is then you're wasting all of those beginning intervals because they're super easy then, because you're just preparing for when you have to do all these add-ons afterwards. So I'm really not a big fan of that. And she did that like the entire ride. It just feels super disorganized, and it's like if I was going to teach a class, I feel like that's what it would be like, because I don't know what I'm doing. But Olivia's been an instructor for a really long time, so there must be people that like all of that like chaotic energy, but I just don't like that. That is not my cup of tea. So I really did not like that ride. And then also I knew she's very big on getting out of the saddle. I don't know if this is true or if this is just like propaganda of like the Power Zone people, but I feel like a lot of Power Zone classes are like you get the most strength building when you're in the saddle, and like that's when you'll actually see improvement by like grinding it out in the saddle, and coming out of the saddle is good for like a break, but in the saddle is like where the work actually needs to be done. And in her class, it's like out of the saddle 75% of the time, like recovery out of the saddle, HIIT sections out of the saddle, like everything is out of the saddle. So I'm just not a big fan of that. I will say the one thing I did like is she does isolations out of the saddle, where essentially you keep your core and top part of your body very still while still pedaling out of the saddle. And I feel like that builds muscles. Like I feel that in my thighs, that it's definitely a difficult thing to do. And not a lot of instructors I take focus on that. So I did like that about the ride, but that was pretty much it. Besides that, I don't think I'm going to be taking an Olivia Amato ride soon. Also, the original reason why I picked this ride is I was scared that it was going to be super hard, and I guess it was super hard, but since you had to add so many things, my actual average output was lower than normal classes that I take without Olivia, because it was just so all over the place. Like I was going so easy because I knew I was going to have to add all of these other things later in the ride, that it was just like a mess. And I just don't think overall it was even that good of a workout for me. It wasn't that hard at the end of the day, because I just had to like keep going super light and then super heavy, and it was just not good. So I'm sorry if you like Olivia Amato. She's definitely not my cup of tea. It's also kind of weird because I love her running content. Like she's one of my favorite running instructors. So it's interesting that I just really don't like her on the bike. Like I find her running content very organized, very straightforward. I really, really enjoy it. And on the bike, she's just not for me. So I definitely didn't think I would have that much to say about this ride, but I had a lot of time to stew over it during those 45 minutes. And I've come to the conclusion that Olivia Amato rides are not for me. So that is it for today. And I will see you next time, where I'm going to do my last most terrifying ride. So today I'm going to be doing my last terrifying ride. And I would say this is the least terrifying out of all of the rides I've taken, but it's still pretty terrifying. But I have taken these ride types before, and they are the Jess King Sweat Steady rides. So I used to not be a huge fan of Jess King at all. She just really wasn't for me, but I've definitely grown to liking her a lot more now that I actually take her classes like semi-frequently. The caveat is that I know that when I take her classes, it's going to be a hard ride. Like it's not going to be easy. She's definitely very intense, but it's usually a pretty fun ride, and I do like her music choices. I have done Sweat Steady rides in the past, and essentially they're like Power Zone rides on steroids. You usually build up to a peak and then come down, but over the course of the whole class. So if it's 45 minutes, you'll probably spend 15 to 20 minutes building up to your hardest output. And the problem with that is that it's hard, right? So if you go like medium to hard for 5 minutes, and then the next 5 minutes you do hard, and then the next 5 minutes you do super hard, that really wears you out. So I usually take the 30-minute classes because up to the peak is a little bit shorter. It's like 10 to 15 minutes, which is still hard, but the 45-minute ones are a special kind of hard and scary. But I really, really like these rides. I find them super rewarding at the end, and you just feel so good, and you get such a good workout in. Basically what she's going for is you get like used to the hardness, so then you go up to the next level and like start getting used to that basically. So I know a lot of people PR on these rides just because you can get really, really high output. So the specific 45-minute Sweat Steady ride I'm doing is from February 15th, 2020. And it is a 9.1 difficulty. It is the hardest rated Sweat Steady class, which they're all hard. So this one has to be a special kind of hard. And it is mostly EDM music. There's also like 1,000 Miles by Vanessa Carlton. That's a bop. Bohemian Rhapsody by Queen. I think it's a little all over the place, but it should be a really fun ride. I'm slightly scared, but it'll be a good workout. It's definitely going to be hard. So let's just get right on into it. That ride was amazing, but it was so hard. So she actually just did the pyramid for about 30 minutes. So it was like 15 minutes building up, 15 minutes coming down. But the build up, I was sweating so much, breathing so hard. I have my Strive score, which is like based on your heart rate. And my Strive score for the entire class was 83.2 compared to Olivia's ride that was 69.9. Kendall's was 73.8. And the Tabata ride was 68.3. So I was way above the other hard rides that I have done in this video. And it was really, really good though. And it was so much fun. The vibes were so good. There were people in the studio, which I'm usually not a fan of, but Jess built off their energy so well. It was really funny because at one point she's like, make some noise if your output's over 200 because that's like what she wanted us to do. And no one made any noise. And she's like, guys, like what is going on? But it was just such a fun ride and it was really, really hard. And I definitely am scared to take them in the future, but I know that like they're rewarding after the fact. Like I feel so good right now and energized, and it was just a super, super great ride. So I'm glad that this video kind of pushed me to take them because they are scary. Like I know that it's going to be a very hard workout. My heart rate was going crazy. I was definitely sweating steady. So mission accomplished with the ride. But overall, 10 out of 10 would highly recommend if you like hard rides. I think you could also modify it. She gives pretty wide ranges. So it's really like, oh, like what's very hard for you and you go and do that. But definitely hard, definitely a good workout. So that's it for this video. I hope I motivated you guys to take some rides that, you know, are out of your comfort zone, are a little scary, maybe a little hard. I promise it's not that bad once you're actually in the ride because the ride itself is so hard that you kind of just have to focus on that rather than like, oh, when is this ride going to be over? And let me know if there's any other rides that terrify you because I sorted by hardest on Peloton, like overall to try to get some ideas. And these seem to be pretty much at the top, which were already what was in my head. So I feel like I agree with the majority of people, but I'd be curious what else you think is really hard and scary on the platform. I hope you guys are staying safe, having an awesome week, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!